The last piece on the program is Rachmaninoff's second piano concerto. And Rachmaninoff is as good an example, maybe even better than Mahler, of what the Romantic composer's life experience is supposed to and in fact is. Rachmaninoff published and performed his first symphony in 1897 and got, we now know it's a terrific piece and is very much in the repertoire, but got a terrible reception. He was extremely depressed. He was a person with a very fragile sense of his own worth all the way through his life. This did not ever change in his life, but this was the worst part. He went through a 3-year devolution spiral of depression and writer's block. And only eventually, after most of those 3 years, he was able to find a psychiatrist who helped him through this and ignited the will and the ability to write again and inspired this piano concerto. So that's the wellspring from which this comes and the inspiration for all of this. And it's that deep personal feeling that brought this piece into the repertoire in such a way that 50 years later, it was so much a part of the American parlance that this happened.
Full moon and empty arms. The moon is there for us to share. But where are you?
By the way, Sinatra, what can I say? This man knew how to phrase as well and reach us as well as any singer on the operatic or the song stage or pop music.
And every kiss.
And just in case you think it was just Sinatra, over a wide span of time,
Full moon and empty arms.
Jerry Vale, they all have their own keys. None of which are Rachmaninoff's. But notice how this really quotes the concerto in a more complete form.
Full moon and empty arms.
Nelson Eddy.
The moon is there for us to share, but where are you?
And then this. Which is not a quote from this. Another wonderful singer with beautiful phrasing. This is Sarah Vaughan.
The moon is there for us to share.
But just by way of relate, oh, and I could have chosen another 15 of these. There are so many of these. This piece really got into our souls as a nation. I don't think it reached pop music, I mean, except that American pop music was always popular in Europe and elsewhere. But it was American pop music that really loved and adopted this piece. All right, so first movement of the piano concerto starts with that intense buildup of emotion. You can almost hear 3 years of frustration in these opening chords. Way in the distance, coming closer. And now the orchestra bursts in and pours its heart out in melancholy. And so on. I think the experience of listening to this piece is not hugely enhanced by picking apart the form or the history of the piece, but by just bathing in the warm water of the emotions that are swelling and going to and fro. So I'm not going to pick it apart. Second movement, however, is quite different because it's much more of an intimate conversation between individual instruments in the orchestra and the piano, and that's what to really listen for in that movement, particularly the flute that has the opening melody after the piano kind of gives the background, and then the long clarinet solo, which is very touching and very spiritual, that goes back and forth with the piano and then later on with the strings. Third movement brings us to where we started with this piece, and it's just pure Rachmaninoff. I'm just going to play the full-blown final version of the tune that now everybody knows in a different way, and you'll see how Rachmaninoff ends in the way that Rachmaninoff puts his stamp on it. It's nice that Rachmaninoff, who himself was a pianist, lets the orchestra do a lot of the singing. And ends in pure Rachmaninoff form like this. You'd pick this piece out of a lineup as unmistakably Rachmaninoff, and especially the last measure. Rachmaninoff Second Piano Concerto.